My best friend cried on my shoulder after a breakup and said that men are trash. A month later I found out that it was with my husband she spent all those lonely evenings. Cynthia sat on my living room couch, her face buried in her hands, sobbing so hard her shoulders shook while she ruined my favorite knit sweater with her tears. Men are absolute trash, Caroline, Cynthia choked out, her voice cracking with a raw, manufactured despair that I, foolishly, took for pure heartbreak. She had just spent the last hour detailing how a long-distance boyfriend, a man I realized later didn't even exist, had shattered her heart into a million pieces. She kept repeating how terrifying it was to go home to an empty, quiet apartment, begging me not to leave her alone in her grief. I held her tight, stroked her hair, and promised her that she would get through this, completely oblivious to the fact that the predator was already inside the house. My husband, Marcus, stood in the kitchen doorway, pouring her a glass of white wine with an expression of deep, solemn sympathy painted across his face. Marcus walked over, handed her the glass, and gently patted her arm before looking at me. Marcus said, "We're here for you, Cynthia, whatever you need." I smiled at him, thinking I had married the most compassionate man alive, with absolutely no idea that the moment I turned my back from my demanding 12-hour nursing shifts at the hospital, the two of them were rewriting the definition of betrayal. Cynthia and I had been inseparable since college, sharing every secret and milestone. When I married Marcus 4 years ago, she stood right beside me as my maid of honor, weeping tears that I thought were born of joy. Marcus was a successful corporate consultant, ambitious and charismatic, but our marriage had one consistent, dark cloud hanging over it. His mother, Freya. Freya was an old-money elitist who made it clear from our very first meeting that I was completely beneath her standards. Strangely enough, Freya absolutely adored Cynthia, who came from a wealthy background. Whenever Cynthia joined us for family dinners, Freya would drop passive-aggressive comments, openly wishing Marcus had chosen someone with Cynthia's poise and pedigree. I used to laugh it off, and Cynthia would always roll her eyes and squeeze my hand under the table, pretending to be just as disgusted by Freya's behavior as I was. In the weeks following Cynthia's supposed breakup, her presence in our lives became suffocating. She would text me late at night, claiming she was having panic attacks from the loneliness. Because my hospital schedule was grueling, I started feeling an intense wave of guilt that I couldn't be there to comfort her. I actually began encouraging Marcus to step in and help. I asked him to drive over to her apartment to fix her leaking kitchen sink, to drop off groceries, and to check up on her after his office hours. Marcus played the role of the reluctant, dutiful husband perfectly. Marcus told me, "I don't want to overstep, Caroline, it feels a little weird going over there so much." I practically begged him to go, telling him that she was my sister and that we couldn't abandon her. I literally handed my husband to her on a silver platter. Then, the subtle shifts began. I noticed an expensive French perfume missing from my vanity drawer, only to smell that exact same fragrance on Cynthia a few days later. Marcus suddenly became plagued by an overwhelming workload, claiming he had to work late 4 or 5 nights a week. Whenever he came home past midnight, he would bypass our bed entirely and go straight to the shower. The illusion shattered into pieces during a mandatory Sunday dinner at Freya's estate. Freya was in rare form, loudly boasting to the extended family about Marcus's recent corporate achievements. Freya looked down the long dining table at me, her lips curling into a smug, venomous smile. Freya said, "Well, at least someone in Marcus's life appreciates how hard he exerts himself." Cynthia was telling me all about the stunning new layout of his corner office when they were together last Tuesday night. The entire dining room went completely silent. Tuesday night was the evening Marcus claimed he was stuck at a solo corporate dinner 2 hours away, unable to answer his phone. My heart stopped, and a cold, sickening dread flooded my veins. I looked across the table at Marcus. His face had gone completely pale. He quickly cleared his throat and tried to recover, laughing nervously. Marcus said, "Oh, Mother is getting confused, she means Cynthia stopped by my office weeks ago to drop off some paperwork." I didn't say a single word for the rest of the dinner. The moment we got home, Marcus rushed upstairs to sleep, claiming he had a massive headache. I waited downstairs in the dark living room until I heard his heavy, rhythmic breathing. I walked over to his briefcase, pulled out his old iPad, and opened the messaging application, which he had forgotten to unlink from his main cloud account. What I found in those message logs destroyed every remaining piece of my naivety. There were hundreds of texts, spanning back months before Cynthia's fake breakup. There were explicit photographs, videos taken inside our own guest bed, and detailed plans of their trysts. But the physical betrayal wasn't even the worst part, it was the sheer, calculated cruelty of their words. In one message, Cynthia wrote, "She actually believes I'm crying over an ex. I'm crying because I have to leave your bed and go back to my empty apartment." Marcus had replied, "I know, babe. She's completely clueless. Just let me handle the joint bank accounts over the next few months so I can move the money around, and then she'll get absolutely nothing in the divorce." I spent the next 4 hours systematically taking screenshots of every single conversation and financial detail, emailing them to a secure, private account. My divorce attorney told me to play the long game and act completely normal until the paperwork was finalized. For 3 agonizing weeks, I lived with the monster in my bed. I smiled at him, I cooked him dinner, and I even welcomed Cynthia into my home, pretending not to notice the lingering scent of my own stolen perfume on her neck. The climax arrived on the night of Marcus's 32nd birthday. Freya had insisted on throwing a lavish dinner party at a high-end restaurant, inviting 20 of their closest family friends and business partners. Cynthia was seated right next to Marcus. When the main course was cleared, Freya stood up, clinking her crystal glass to command attention. Freya said, "I want to raise a toast to my magnificent son, who deserves only the absolute best." Everyone clapped, and Marcus beamed with pride. I stood up immediately after her, holding my own glass, smiling warmly. I said, "I'd love to add to that toast, and I actually brought a special birthday gift for Marcus that I think everyone in this room needs to see." I walked over to the room's large media projector and plugged my tablet into the system. Instead of a nostalgic slideshow, the massive screen flashed with high-definition screenshots of Marcus and Cynthia's text messages, complete with their explicit photos and their detailed financial plans to ruin me. The entire restaurant room descended into a suffocating, horrified silence. Marcus leaped out of his chair so fast he knocked his wine glass over, staining the white tablecloth a deep, bloody red. Marcus poured out his anger, yelling, "Caroline, what the hell is this? Turn that off right now. You're crazy." Cynthia stammered, her voice shaking, "It's a mistake, Caroline, please let me explain." Freya stood up, her face twisted in absolute fury. Freya shouted, "You pathetic, low-class girl. You are making a disgraceful public scene." I didn't lower my voice. I turned up the volume on the tablet and played an audio recording I had captured of them talking in our kitchen just days prior, laughing about how stupid I was. I looked directly at Cynthia and spoke calmly, my voice echoing through the silent room. I said, "You can have him, Cynthia. He's exactly the kind of trash you were crying on my shoulder about." I walked out of that restaurant with my head held high. Because I had extensive documentation of his financial fraud, my attorney completely dismantled him in court. I walked away with the house, a significant portion of his retirement accounts, and my complete freedom. A year has passed since that fateful night, and the aftermath has been a masterclass in poetic justice. Marcus's professional reputation took a massive hit, and several high-profile clients severed ties with his firm. Marcus and Cynthia tried to stay together, but trust is impossible between two chronic cheaters. They broke up officially 6 months ago after Marcus caught Cynthia texting one of his own colleagues. Cynthia ended up moving away to a completely different state in total disgrace, and Freya refuses to show her face at the local country club. I am finally thriving, my home is peaceful, and I learned the hardest way possible that the people who cry the loudest on your shoulder are sometimes the ones holding the knife.